In the new Netflix series, Nobody Wants This, Kristen Bell plays Joanne, an agnostic podcaster who falls for Adam Brody's Noah, a rabbi. They have instant chemistry and want to make a relationship work, but unfortunately, their different lives and opinionated family and friends aren't making it easy for them. Join us as we review the very funny and very sweet 2024 Netflix series, Nobody Wants This.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Welcome to Once More Unhinged, our weekly chat show where we get together to discuss what we're reading, listening to, engaging with this week. I'm Ryan something.
And I'm patiently waiting for a hot rabbi to waltz in and do an impromptu Shabbat.
Ma'am, you have a hot rabbi.
I do not have a hot rabbi, but I do have a very hot Jewish man that I celebrate Shabbat with.
Ah, yes, he is. Absolutely.
He is. Yeah, man. Let's get into it. We are here to talk about the fabulous new Netflix series, Nobody Wants This.
Yeah.
Ever heard of it? I mean, if you have not, I'm shocked. It's all over social media. Yeah. It's #1 on the Netflix top 10.
Mm-hmm. For good reason.
For great reasons. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it over the weekend, right? Like,
yeah, you suggested that we could cover this for one of our Unhinged episodes, and I said, great, I've heard good stuff about it. I had seen some social media postings, so I dived in and I finished it in the same evening.
Yeah.
Start to finish, 10 episodes. They're short episodes. They range.
I think the longest one was like 32 minutes.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
They're zippy.
They're zippy. And that's one of the things that I really like about this show is that
Same.
It keeps it moving. We're not getting lost in any side plots. Anyway, I really like the show.
I love this show. Yeah. So I had, again, seen some on social media. Mm-hmm. It's the Hot Rabbi show. Everyone's talking about Adam Brody as Hot Rabbi Noah Rucklov.
Okay.
And before we get into it, I got to ask, what's your history with Adam Brody? Did you watch The OC? Are you a Seth Cohen guy? What's your history with Adam Brody?
I did not watch The OC.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people of our generation did. Mm-hmm. I didn't. The closest I got to The OC was Laguna Beach. And I don't know if is that in Orange County? Couldn't say.
My gosh. Well, I guess I'd have to go back. What was before Laguna Beach? There was another show, wasn't there? What was the one with Spencer and...
That was The Hills. That was after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever the original was.
Yeah, the first one was Laguna Beach.
Laguna Beach.
Then Lauren moves to Los Angeles.
That's it. Lauren moves. She gets the internship at the fashion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's why I didn't jump on this show immediately. That and just time. But I don't have this like love of Adam Brody from The OC. I never watched it.
Sure.
I know what it is. I know who Misha Barton is. Peter Gallagher was on that show.
Love Peter Gallagher.
Too. So I didn't really know. But I was like, oh, it was a show about a hot rabbi. I think Kristen Bell is not Jewish. That's kind of interesting. Like maybe I'll get to it. But the more I read and just saw online, I was like, okay, we got to watch this. I think it's going to be really fun to talk about. And boy, was I proven right.
I was just blown away by this show. The series delivers. It's really smart. It's thoughtful take on like not just like interfaith romances, but highlighting like mature adult relationships.
Yeah.
Focused on honest, vulnerable communication. It's just such a powerful show that bucks the traditional norms and formats that everyone's just been plugging and playing into with romance comedies for a while.
I love a rom-com, but I think they're not unproblematic, especially the ones that I grew up with from the 90s and the aughts. They're formulaic. There's always miscommunication. There's always a big problem that could easily be solved with an honest conversation. This show doesn't fall into that. They still have flawed people.
Right.
They communicate like adults. They communicate healthily, but they're still works in progress. It's not easy. Just because they're communicating doesn't make everything easy peasy.
No. Sometimes it can make it more difficult, but therein lies the commitment. It's like, hey, do you want to continue down this journey with me or not? Are you willing to? Do you choose me? Is this okay? It's great.
It is.
I have really enjoyed seeing characters play out like real humans. without having to play out some formulaic idea of what romance is.
Agreed. And I, as somebody who, I mean, you know this, but our listeners and watchers, I have my own, hot brunette Jewish man that I'm in love with.
Okay.
And I did not grow up Jewish.
Mhm.
I grew up going to Catholic school, and my family's like Baptist. It's I grew up Christian. I'm saying that in air quotes because
you grew up in the Bible Belt.
Yes. I'm not particularly a religious person.
Mhm.
So I identified with Joanne on that. And it was just kind of cool to see this relationship on screen.
Yeah.
In a way that I could relate to. My husband's not a rabbi. We call him the Blessed Rabbi in our friend circles, but he's not a rabbi. He wasn't, as religious, I think, as Noah is in the show and his family, but his Judaism meant a lot to him like it does to Noah. Yeah. And having to navigate that, the more serious you get with somebody, you start to have those questions and thoughts like, okay, where is this going to go? If we have children, how are we going to raise our children? And I really I don't know, I felt like I was seeing myself and my relationship on screen in a really cool way. And I just really I blew through this show. I started it yesterday and I finished it this morning. It's great. I really, really enjoyed it.
I think it's romantic, but it's real. It's refreshingly heartfelt, as you just described, and genuinely funny.
It's so funny. Yeah. I laughed out loud a lot.
They keep it moving. Again, they're not getting lost in side plots. They're not getting lost in contrived drama because there's a relationship. There must be some sort of drama. Yes, there is some drama that unfolds, but they work through it. No one goes to like their corners and create nonsensical scenarios in their head. I just think it's very it's just refreshing to see something like this on television, and especially I watched it through the lens of my friends who you and your husband, knowing his faith and knowing his relationship to it and knowing his family and those dynamics, and then knowing you and watching how you came into that relationship with him and how y'all address those matters. I see what you're saying. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that I enjoyed this so much is that I got to see some of my friends in this.
Yeah.
There were so many times where I would be watching this and I thought, did you write a TV series and submit it to Netflix and never tell anyone about it?
I wish I would have.
Because there's just so many great beats and moments in here that made me think of you and your husband and your family.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I loved it too. And I mean, even with, like you said, the lack of contrived drama, the drama that does exist feels realistic. I mean,
that's it.
Joanne played by Kristen Bell and Morgan played by Justine Loop, who we loved. We were talking about her off mic.
Willow.
Yeah, we only know her really as Willa from Succession. She was amazing on that show. Oh my God, her and Connor. They're kidding. When he's about to propose, what episode is it? And she's just drinking. She's stunning. I want to see Justine Loop and everything now.
Yeah, what a comedian.
She's
we didn't really
great.
get to see all of that. We got some of it on Succession, but it's great to see her really kind of spread her wings. And man, does she ever play a perfect sibling.
Yes. And their tension and friction, they still resolve it. And it felt realistic. Like your sisters, you're going to fight. You're going to, sometimes you're going to, where Joanne is like, you're lying. I believe Noah. And Morgan's not lying. Morgan's been lied to. And that, I mean, it does get cleared up, but that felt real. That felt like something sisters would actually fight about.
It would be a full out fight.
Yeah.
They brought it. Yeah. I love their dynamic just in general, especially when mom is added to the mix.
Oh, I love her.
And I love their relationship too, that it's all very open. There's communication between mom's able to express what's been going on with dad, who's turned gay, but they're not divorced. And, she's struggling through that.
Yeah.
But mom's also just kind of like a little whimsical, she's
doing ayahuasca with her Uber driver.
Yeah, she's doing mushrooms.
Yeah.
She's, into the aura stuff. And so she's not afraid to communicate like what's on her. Anyway, I just love the healthy communication between the families. And they're showing that. So you get the sibling dynamic between the sisters. I know that you can relate to this. I have a sister, but I'm not a sister dynamic, obviously. But I see that. Like, I see the sibling rivalry. I see like the little like digs. See, just kind of the healthy, open, honest communication. Of course, they have a podcast where they're talking about a whole
Wow.
lot of
Yes.
raw and real life scenarios.
Sex and modern
Sex
relationships.
and modern relationships. And anyway, I just love that dynamic. I love the brothers and their dynamic.
Sasha and Noah have a great dynamic.
So good.
I love Sasha.
When Sasha comes out of the hospital to meet Noah, and he's like, what's the situation? What's going on? She's fighting for her life. She just broke her wrist.
She broke her wrist.
He's like, you know, giving him a warning. He's like, hey, before you go up there, everyone's like talking about you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll help you out as much as I can, but I'm also going to look out for my own interest.
Right. Yeah.
I just love that dynamic and the way that they are with their parents. It's just beautiful to see this and it not be the main focus.
They kept the storylines tight. Like you had some side, not plots, but just like we would check in. We would check in with Sasha and Esther.
Yes.
Esther and Rebecca.
That's it.
And, you know, but they were all still, it didn't feel like we, you know, it didn't feel like we had to spend a whole episode over here with Esther and Sasha.
We didn't need to. Yeah.
Everything made sense.
Yeah.
They did such a great job at drawing these characters, making them three-dimensional.
That's it.
And it was great. They did a really good job of using the family and friends to really emphasize the differences between Joanne and Noah.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Joanne's family, parents are still married but separated because dad is gay and he's got his new boyfriend, Pat.
Sure.
Lynn is still like holding a torch for him, but everybody's so honest and open. And Lynn doesn't care that her daughter is her daughters are talking about sex and relationships on a podcast.
Not at all. She's helping to find people to come and talk on the podcast.
Exactly. Then you look at Noah and Sasha's parents who are, you know, the mom, Bina is definitely, she's an immigrant. I think they said she's from Russia.
Yeah.
You know, very traditional Jewish family, Bina and Mr. Rockloff.
They added all that.
Right. And they're more traditional. They're not talking about sex with their children.
No.
I mean, Bina at the dinner, the brunch, you know, in the episode, My Girl Bina, where she's like, what woman does this? You should be ashamed of yourself talking about things that you do behind closed doors.
Exactly.
They just come from such different backgrounds.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the stark contrast.
And that's, you know, watching it.
And that is real.
It's real. Mine was reversed with my husband. His family's much more open.
Totally.
Mine, like, no, we're not talking about. Like, my mother probably would die if she ever listened to any of our podcasts because of how crass I am.
Right.
So it was just kind of cool to, you know, see that. I remember some of the first times hanging out with my husband's family, my in-laws, who I have a great relationship with, who I love. First couple times I was like,
no filter.
None whatsoever. And I did not grow up that way. It was shocking.
It is. It can be.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we had similar dynamics growing up. Of course, I think we would safe to say ours was more sex positive and open in those discussions.
Yeah, yours was for sure.
But, you know, we still grew up in small rural towns in, you know, Christian communities. And it's like taboo to even talk about going to the bathroom. Don't talk about poop. Like making a joke about sex or asking someone about, you know, sex or just being vulnerable and human and curious in the conversation of what's going on. And I think they do an excellent job of addressing that. Joanne is having a conversation with, I think she's having a conversation with Noah. And I think he asked her, he says, do you think that there's any flip side to knowing every intimate detail of your life? Like, you know, once you say something, you can never take it back. And then, you know, she's joking with him. She's like, Jesus, how dark are your secrets? And he says, well, my parents are big on privacy. They're immigrant Jews from Russia. Back then it was the Soviet Union. If you said your name out loud, it could be dangerous if it sounded too Jewish. And she said, well, I get that from where they're coming from. But in today's society where it's, you know, not so dangerous to be open, I think it's a lot more healthy. We really need to tiptoe around all these issues that make us uncomfortable. Or is it part of the problem? Like money and relationships and sex, I think it's if more people say them out loud and what they like and what they don't like, they'd realize that it's totally normal and they wouldn't be carrying around all the shame.
Love it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Whether it's money and especially in relationships, you need to talk about money.
You need to talk about money.
Finances, because it's just healthy to work as a partnership, but also let's be realistic. What if something doesn't work out? Have the conversation. Don't shy away from it.
Have the conversation. That's it. And That's one of the things that we both really loved about this show is that it promotes that openness, that honesty. I mean, later on, there's a conversation with Noah and Joanne where he's like, I need to tell you something.
Right.
And he's like building himself up and she's like, hey, I'm feeling very anxious right now. Can you please can you just say it?
Right.
I loved hearing that. That's just such a realistic thing.
It is. It's encouraging without it being like, oh, I got my feelings hurt, so I'm going to go to my corner.
Right.
And then we're going to spend 2 episodes trying to get out of that.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, this is hard for me to say this to you. Can you please turn around?
Right.
So we can have the conversation.
I love that. Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm not going to turn around. So she turns around.
Yep.
And I love how vulnerable that is. It's just human. And I think that for someone like me, and I'm projecting this on all of the listeners and everyone else viewing this, but I think what this show does is really get to the heart of that issue of fear and shame and the willingness and the ability to have those open conversations.
Yeah.
It's so difficult for someone who is crippled by anxiety, especially anxiety that is triggered by relationships. And I think that's what makes this show such a breath of fresh air for someone like me. To see it played out in a healthy way. Again, not devoid of any drama or heartache or tough lessons, but in one that keeps moving on. I think that is where these two worlds colliding are actually beneficial to both of these individuals and their relationship. Yep. He's learning something, she's learning something. And there's even a great scene at camp.
Oh, yeah.
Where one of the rabbis is talking with Noah after Kristen Bell has left, after Joanna has left. And, she has that conversation. She's like, hey, maybe she compromises. Maybe you compromise. Maybe you both give a little. What matters is the effort that you put in and your happiness, basically, out of the whole thing. And I'm just like, this is such a beautiful show. It
is. And I want to shout out Rabbi Shira. And she reminded me a lot of the rabbi who converted me. Shout out Rabbi Marina Jurgen at Temple Bethel in San Antonio.
Yeah.
She's very
What was your experience like?
Converting? Yeah. So I had really been interested in Judaism just from a historical aspect.
One might call you a history buff.
Hey. I've always just been interested in it as a religion. And when I met my husband, who was raised Jewish, very proud to be Jewish, I was like, okay, this is cool. I'll learn some more. Like I said, I'm not a particularly religious person. I grew up small town Texas, very Christian, very conservative. And I'm not saying all Christianity is that, but I experienced the negative side of Christianity. And when we started dating, we were young. That wasn't really a thought at the time, like, oh, he's Jewish. We're going to get married. I'm going to be Jewish and be a whole thing. As we continued to date and I saw more and more of the culture and the traditions and the things that meant something to him, they started to mean something to me. Yeah. And then when we went to Passover, we went to visit his family in Toronto and did Passover. It was a big meal, a lot of people. And there was just this emphasis on Judaism where you can question. And in Christianity, at least the Christianity and Catholicism I was around, you don't question, you just do. You follow the teachings,
right? And
you just do it. And if you don't do it, you're taking the elevator downstairs.
Yeah.
Judaism is not that. There is extreme parts of Judaism. We're not here to have a Judaism podcast, right? But what I was exposed to that Passover, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I liked the community. I liked the history.
Right.
I felt very connected to that, not necessarily the religious aspect, which I know they're tied together, but
more of the study of the culture of it.
Yeah. Right. And so I did kind of decide, if we stayed together and got married and had kids, I would convert and I would want to raise my children that way. Then I found out I was pregnant. This is years later. And I was like, you know what? Anyway, we had a conversation. We'd been together at this point for probably 7 years. And I decided, we knew we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. I said I was going to convert. And I had to do a year process, which that conversation Joanne has with her girlfriends. Like someone says 2 years, someone says 6 weeks. Mine was a year. And
I remember that. You would drive to San Antonio.
Yep. For the first 6 weeks, my husband had to come with me because they were like, hey, if you're converting and there's a other partner involved who's Jewish, we want them to be a part of it to make sure, like they discuss in this movie, that you're not just doing it for your partner.
Exactly.
And that your partner understands this commitment and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I found out I was pregnant and finished my conversion. I did get to pick a Hebrew name, which was very fun.
Would you like to share it?
I would. My Hebrew name is Shoshana, which means to dance. But yeah, and I loved it. I mean, I really enjoy Judaism, and I enjoy the traditions we do with our children. We do Shabbat almost every Friday, celebrate the high holidays. It's almost Yom Kippur. Last week was Rosh Hashanah. I love it. I feel connected to it. It's as close as I've gotten spiritually interested in religion. So yeah, my husband never once was like, I need you to convert.
No, he was never that way.
No, he didn't ask that of me. It's something that I wanted to do for myself. And I'm sitting here today, a very proud Jewish woman. And I love it. My relationship with it continues to evolve and grow. And I'm sure it will as my children get older. They both have Hebrew names and they love it. We love it. It was just really fun to see this storyline on a great TV show. And, it's interesting. I would like to talk to somebody who grew up Jewish and has that background that I don't and see what they think of it. But to me, it felt, I don't know, it felt relatable to me.
Yeah.
So as a former shiksa, we want to get into the shiksa of it all.
Yeah. I think that you're seeing a great blend of how relationships can mingle between these interfaith positions. I think more than just Judaism, I think just extending beyond that, how you can be in a relationship with someone just coming from a different background in general and having different ideas and having different values and learning what that means to them and also what that means to yourself and how much of those traditional values or what you grew up having imprinted on you is a make or break for you when you meet someone else and value who they are.
Yeah.
And what you're looking for and what y'all have together. I think it's just a great conversation. And they do it in a way that is witty and clever and full of humor.
I love it. Yeah, I love that the last line of the first episode is Bina in the shul saying, a shiksa.
Oh, yeah.
So when my husband and I first started dating a couple years in, there was always the running joke. Like, when they say in the show, good Jewish boy marries a nice Jewish girl.
Yeah.
But in between, shiksas are for practice. And a shiksa it's a fun word to say, but it's not really a nice word. It's like, degenerate. You're usually a non-Jewish woman. Not usually. It's a non-Jewish woman, probably a woman of low morals. And my husband's brother at the time was also dating a non-Jew, a Gentile. And we used to refer to ourselves as the shiksas. And it was a joke for us. And so hearing this, it was just really funny.
Yeah. I like how this show is able to turn that on its head. And instead of using it as an insult.
Oh, they absolutely use it as an insult.
Well, I think that the mom and the congregation,
the Jewish side does.
Right. But I think that the kids, that Noah and his brother, and I think the sisters really kind of turn it upside down and they embrace it. He's describing her as like, oh, it's usually like, a short blonde, whatever. She's like, bubbly. She's bubbly. She's like, oh, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, maybe we should rebrand the podcast.
Oh, the slutty shishkas.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, the slutty shishkas. And it's funny.
It is funny.
And I like taking humor and turning it upside down to take an insult and actually make it something that you're going to embrace.
Yeah.
My grandmother, when she was an elected official, there were 3 women who were all about the same level of elected officials together who were basically ostracized by the men of the county who would call them as an insult, the 3 B's.
The 3 bitches?
The 3 bitches. And
how dare they?
And they loved it.
Good
They
for them.
loved the power that the three of them together had over these men. And so they embraced it. And they would go around the county calling each other the 3Bs.
Good.
Yeah. I like embracing something and not letting it have power over you. And I think that's exactly what they do in this show in so many different ways, where the mom tries to lob an insult, or the ex-girlfriend, or the ex-girlfriend's friend, the sister.
I love Esther, though.
Esther. And does it hurt? Yeah. She takes some of, it's difficult, but she's up for the challenge.
Yeah.
And I love that attitude where it's like, hey, okay, cool. Go ahead and be mean girls, but I'm going to turn it around.
Yeah.
I'm going to make this work for, the positive of my relationship. I'm invested in this relationship.
Yeah. And their relationship is very sweet. Adam Brody and Kristen Bell have amazing chemistry. So good. It's a great kiss.
When they're having dinner at her friend's, the mutual dinner, the meet cute.
Oh God, when she shows up wearing that chinchilla coat.
When she's got the chinchilla coat on, and they're having the conversation in the kitchen. I mean, immediately I'm like, I'm here for this chemistry.
Fireworks, yeah.
And then they're sitting at the table, and she thought that the rabbi was the guy across.
The old guy.
The old guy with the beard.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, rabbi.
She's like, oh, so you're the asshole. Yeah.
So good.
It's great.
Great chemistry. The kiss.
Yes, the kiss is amazing.
The build up to the kiss too. They get the dinner, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not staying."
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have a
margarita.
I'll have a margarita. And she's like, "But put it in a to-go cup." And he's like, "Man, we don't do that." She goes, "Put it in a cup you don't want to see anymore."
And then she's like, "Can you bring some bread to the table?"
Yeah, I'll take some bread, and then order the salad.
Yeah.
And then they end up having ice cream.
It's so sweet.
It's just so sweet. And I also love that, again, it's human. It's real. They're walking down the street, and she's like, kind of weird that we haven't kissed yet.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, set your bag down. Let me see your ice cream. And he leans in. It's just a perfect moment.
It's a great kiss.
It's a great kiss. And it's nice to see that healthy communication and that dialogue, and just people being vulnerable. It's tough being single. It's tough asking someone, hey, you want to kiss? Not everyone's got the Mac or the game to just kind of lean in. And especially people who've been hurt. She's been hurt. She's been going down this road of spinning through all these different guys.
Bad relationships.
He's coming out of a relationship.
Yeah.
Is he in one? Is he not? Because she, obviously thinks that there's something still there between them.
I think he makes it pretty clear that he's ended things.
But it's still a bit gray because she's hanging on.
That's on her.
And the family's hanging on. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an awkward situation, but I think that they navigate it in a very mature and adult way.
Even the I don't want to say the confrontation. I don't think it's a confrontation, but it's the face-to-face meeting between Joanne and Rebecca, the ex-girlfriend, at the end.
Oh yeah, that was coming.
But it was also it wasn't this whole you bitch and this and that. It was just
it wasn't a fight.
She's Rebecca is hurt, and she says she's hurt, and she admits, or she says, you're everything he never wanted. Yeah. And she admits that she's hurt. She's like, you're going to be Mrs. Head Rabbi. Mm-hmm. And admits that she wasn't proud of what she did with the lying to Morgan about Noah. But
even Joanna's like, hey, I got mad respect for you. Because I maybe would have done the same thing. She's like, that's a lot of courage.
She's like, I've been obsessed with you. And when Rebecca's like, I've kind of been obsessed with you too. And Joanne's like, really? It was a human moment.
That's it.
And this show is just full of them. And I loved it. I really loved this show. And I hope we get a season 2. Yeah.
Straight up, the writing. Zinger after zinger after zinger after zinger. And the dialogue is just so well written. But I do love the loser sibling energy.
Okay, let's talk about the loser sibling energy.
I love both the loser siblings. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of it is so relatable in many ways. Uh-huh. But I just love their dynamic. And I'm not talking about their will they, won't they, should they, dynamic. I'm just talking about having that sibling. There are so many times in my life where I'm having a serious situation, and it's always my sister who's going to make some sort of a crack that is just enough to be real. And then also just enough to kind of check me. Yeah. Which I totally love. But I have to say, the brother and the sister.
So Morgan and Sasha
being the comic relief throughout this entire show is just chef's kiss.
I love it.
Hey, I'm going to, are we ready for sexy time? She's like, sorry, I'm going out with the girls tonight. But you got the whole place to yourself. And he's like, wait, what?
Oh really? My gosh.
Do I?
Yeah.
And it made me think of you.
Oh, yeah.
Because I know you value your quiet and alone time.
Very
If
much
you have
so.
to carve it out. It's one of those things that is just what makes you who you are and refills your battery.
Yes.
And I just started laughing because I'm just like, oh, Jenny, it's like, oh, you're out. The kids are out. Like, I can make my meal. I can watch Vanderpump and,
take a little
bath.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you just like kind of have your night. And here he is. And he's doing like, he's got a little happy song.
Yeah.
And then I love Morgan, of course. She is just fun and witty. They kind of paint her at the beginning as almost like the dumb blonde, but she's not. Don't sleep on Morgan.
Don't sleep on Morgan.
She, has a whole side of her that is valued, and she brings so much to the table, not just with the podcast, but with the relationship with her sister, where she's not afraid to show up and put those gals in their place at the basketball game.
So that's what I was going to say is one of my favorite things about the whole show is Morgan, their relationship where they show up for each other.
They show for each other.
And when, Joanne's like, I'm with the wags.
Mm-hmm.
Esther is busting my balls. Like, I cannot break through to her.
Yeah.
Morgan shows up with a bottle of tequila in her bag.
A bag full of liquor.
And she's like, let's go.
Let's go.
It's great. And, to touch on the loser sibling, I have to ask, would you say you're the loser sibling?
You know it.
My sister is younger than me, and I grew up in her shadow. Like I was definitely the loser sibling in my household.
My sister had a baby book. I did not. Okay, now we're getting deep.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted us. Yeah, I think one of my favorite dynamics and aspects of this show was Sasha and Morgan, and that was just a great way to expand the main characters, but give those two their own agency, but not drag us so far into the weeds of their stuff. Like,
right. We're just far enough in the peripheral where you can step aside, you get a little bit of that comic relief, and you see how they are part of who these individuals are.
Mm-hmm.
They're part of the family. They step up, they fill in, they do what they need to do. They give us a break from the main characters, and then we're back in it again without getting lost in the sauce, without getting lost in the weeds, without having so many episodes that you have to add on to because there's all this other side roads that you're going down.
Yeah.
I love that for this show.
I do. It was great.
Yeah. One of my absolute favorite things about this show, there were really a few scenes. The camp scene I thought was great because it was just very poignant about both of them knowing that there are other priorities in their life that they should be focusing on, but they're just like in the zone. They're kind of like in that honeymoon phase.
Oh yeah.
They want to spend every single moment together, and she has to puts off the podcast to her detriment. And then also he has to, try to hide her.
He's hiding her.
And so anyway, I thought that was just a very mature and thoughtful way of addressing that sort of like early relationship dynamic. I howled at the sex shop scene.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
Where they get busted by one of the congregants.
Mr. Goldberg.
One of the board members.
Or Goldstein, I can't remember.
Mr. Goldstein, one of the board members of the temple. And just the way that they played that, even before they go on the date, he's like, hey, like I'm really interested in getting to know her. It's not just all about like getting laid tonight. Like I want to go deeper.
Yeah.
Like I'm
going to take her deep.
I'm going to take it like super deep. And they're like, oh yeah. And he is trying to, genuinely connect with her, even though it's like not the best situation. But in that moment, it was just so funny. He gets busted and she comes around the corner with the gimp mask on and then flocks him. Just like added to.
And he's wearing a dog collar.
That entire scenario. Yes, he's wearing a leash and a collar. So funny. And then the dinner, the lunch at Bina's. Like
brunch at Bina's.
When she finally confronts the mother, where they finally meet and have that whole dynamic, and then she busts her eating from the charcuterie plate
that she had trashed
from the trash. And later, when she's recounting it, and Joanne says, "Yes, one might compare it to a raccoon." It's like not a raccoon.
Yeah, she takes the fall for Bina because Bina was eating pork.
She does. And
she says, oh, it was me. That scene is hilarious.
It's hilarious. And it's
so great.
This moment in the show where the power dynamic shifts like that.
Yes.
And this show is so linear. It just keeps moving forward without getting lost in the sauce, without, again, that formula that we're just so used to.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I was episode 5. Again, I told you earlier, I was anxious that this show was going to end with this huge breakup and heartache for us, the viewers who were so invested.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was a real fear and anxiety because that's just what we're used to. It's what we're conditioned to seeing. This is so healthy.
It was great.
It's refreshing.
Love this show. And like I said, hope we get more of it.
Me too. What else, Jenny?
Yeah. I like you talk about the ending. They do decide at the end.
Please, yeah.
So they've had the conversation of maybe Joanne is going to convert. She says she will. But then at Miriam's bat mitzvah, she kind of comes to the realization that she's not ready to make that commitment because she would only be doing it for Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't want it to be just for him. And so she tells him, she's like, hey, they tell each other that they love each other, but I can't do that. And she says, I see what's at stake now. You need me to be something that I can't promise that I can be. And if I falter even a little bit, your whole life blows up. That's not fair to you. You can't have both. And I would never make you choose. So she leaves and she's like, don't follow me.
Yeah. And that is love.
That is love.
Two things can be true at the same time. You can love someone,
Mm-hmm.
but also understand where your place is in respect of their life and their choices, and choose to sit with that. That's a choice, and that's a difficult choice, but it is a choice that's coming for love. She's not trying to manipulate him.
No.
She's not begging him to...
Not giving him an ultimatum.
Exactly. It's very mature. It's
It is.
very adult.
Yeah.
And I love seeing it. And I love knowing that it's coming from a place of genuine love. You know, by the way that this is written, that these two people genuinely care about one another.
Yep. That's on my note. This whole conversation was handled very realistically and maturely. Like it's not, you have to pick. It's your head rabbi job or it's me. It's
right.
like, she's just saying how she feels.
That's not love.
That's not love. I would argue that. And that's, I think, for someone like me who grew up with that idea that love has to be dramatic and angsty and like this, and this, and it doesn't. And I think you have to untrain your brain from like the idea of the media portrayal of love to like, well, no, love it's a lot of choices. It's a lot of quiet moments. It's a lot of hard moments. It's not always, show tunes and Tweety birds. Like it's just, that's not life. That's not people.
Right. I think that is a dynamic of love, but I don't think that that's what makes love. I think love is vulnerability. Love is authenticity. Love is trust. Love is understanding. Love is grace. Love is work.
Love is
love
work.
Is effort. There's it's not perfect, but when you find someone who's willing to go on the journey with you, when you find someone who's willing to trust you,
trust is a big part of it.
Who's willing to respect your choices and your decision and sit with that and be okay with that. That's genuine and it's authentic. And that whole scene was just beautiful.
It was.
And we won't spoil it for the way that it all ends up, but
it's great.
It really is. It's a great show.
Yeah.
And it's a show that is not filled with the sex of it all. No. There is healthy, open, clear, a lot of discussion about sex and
it's not a gratuitous sex scene show.
Gratuitous. It never happened that way.
It was great.
What was in the forefront was what's in the heart between these two people. You do get a scene where you know that they've slept together. Yeah. And you do get this little montage of that new relationship where you just want to stay in bed for 3 days or 6 days or however long it was. But it's not just like in your face. Yeah. And I love that about this show. Again, this show stole my heart.
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah. If you haven't watched it, Nobody Wants This on Netflix.
Check it out.
Starring Kristen Bell and Adam Brody. Run, don't walk.
Cool.
Okay.
Speaking about healthy relationships, as you know, I've been reading Man Enough
by Justin
Baldoni. And I'm all the way in chapter 8 and I'm reading about like relationships and love and like healthy relationship dynamics. And he talks about this sort of relationship dynamic in the book and he compares it to his own relationship with his wife. Anyway, he talks about their there's no room in the scripts of fairy tales for like the reality of being human together.
Yeah.
And as much as I love a good movie, there are just not that many big commercial hits that come close to doing true love justice.
I would agree.
And he talks about that in here. He's like, that's the movie script that I want to see. He's talking about all the moments with his wife, Emily, that take his breath away, that are not the fairy tale scripts and the sunsets and this and that. And he describes in detail all the moments throughout the course of their relationship that he is in the moment. He's like, this is why I love you.
Yeah.
Like it's this moment where you're imperfect in the morning and being just so vulnerable in that moment with like your body and everything else that's going on. He's like, these are all the moments that build up, that are real, that are human, that make me love you.
Yeah.
And, you know, reading that in this book and then watching this show, it's like, hey, Justin, we finally got the show.
Yeah.
You know, this show does that.
Would be interested to know his thoughts on it.
Yeah. Though, same here. I'd be willing to bet that he covers it on his podcast. Okay. Well, Jenny, this is Unhinged.
It is.
And it's ACL week.
It is. Here we go. Okay. So our Unhinged segment, talking about ACL weekend 1. As of today's recording, it is October the 8th. ACL Fest is a big deal in Austin. If you haven't heard of it, it's a music festival, 2 weekends a month.
Haven't heard of it. Welcome to Earth.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's been in September. Basically, it's in October now. Yeah, we went to ACL Fest this weekend.
We got tickets originally in May to see Dua Lipa.
Dua Lipa.
We love you.
Dua Lipa, ma'am, respectfully, I am a changed woman after your ACL weekend 1 set. I am a changed woman. It was a religious experience for me.
It was.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey. Love the outfits. Respectfully. Love the hair. Madam, you can dance.
She can dance.
Madam, you can dance. And so can your backup dancers.
It's a great show.
You put on a fantastic show.
Yes.
And I wish that I could see you the second weekend or just like see you any weekend.
Anytime.
Just holler at us.
Do you want to be on the podcast?
Yes, please. Come on the podcast. Please.
Dua Lipa. Yeah, she was amazing.
She was great.
Because we bought the tickets for her and Chappell Roan.
And then
Chappell Roan got moved to Sunday. And by this point, when she got moved, tickets were crazy expensive.
Can you imagine, based upon what we know now, had those two artists been on the same day?
It would have been madness.
It was already mad, just her moving dates.
That would have been crazy. And I'm glad it worked out the way it did. I'm bummed that I didn't get to see Chappell Roan, but we had a great time.
We had a lovely time.
We went with my husband and friend of the pod, Mavish, and her husband. Mm-hmm. It was, we're people of a certain age. Okay. It was very hot.
Well.
What?
I brought an extra tapioca today. Would you,
only if I can pair it with my Ensure.
Yeah. Your boost. Is that what you were on this morning?
What did Sally feel?
You were on a boost.
Must be. What did Sally feel? What did she used to promote?
Oh, I can't recall.
Boniva.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
So
what was Unhinged?
What was
about
Unhinged?
ACL?
Because
we had a lovely time.
We had a great time.
The weather was nice.
It was fine. It was a little dusty. It was hot, but
it
fine.
Was dusty. Okay, that's Unhinged. But
the Unhinged part for me.
Here we go. The lines.
The amount of people. Like, my husband works in hospitality. We were able to get some hospitality wristbands. We get there, go into the hospitality tent, have some drinks, and we wanted to go buy some merch. By the time we went and got merch and listened to a little bit of Teddy Swims' set,
we did.
There was a line to get into the hospitality tent.
We couldn't get back in.
We couldn't get back in.
Yeah.
That it just feels a little oversold to me.
What was bad was the amount of people and effort that you have to put forward in getting into the festival. Before you even get a chance to enjoy it, before it gets too crowded that you can't enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's what was totally unhinged for me.
Yeah, the line to get in was crazy.
I've been to a lot of festivals in my time.
In my days.
And one that I can always point to that is just really well done, which is the Jazz and Heritage Festival in New Orleans.
Oh, I want to go there so bad.
But I don't remember there being this many people or this many ticket holders at this festival. And I really think that the amount of tickets, and listen, the money after they pay the artists and they're covering all their bills, what's left over is for a nonprofit that benefits Silker Park.
Yeah.
It's a foundation. It's a benefit. It's a fundraiser. But there are way too many ticket holders. It's Unhinged. They need to scale it back because you can't enjoy yourself anymore.
People getting in and out, it felt dangerous. Like the bottlenecking to get in and to the festival, getting out. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age where awful things can happen at music festivals and public venues. And that was it just felt off. I mean, look, I haven't been since 2011. Yeah. There were not as many people in 2011. I'm interested to see what it looks like for weekend 2. Because the Chappell Roan crowd, we watched on Hulu. Shout out Hulu. Thank y'all for streaming.
The largest crowd in ACL history.
It was insane. And people, I was on Reddit and social media. A lot of people said they felt unsafe in that crowd. A lot of people said they had a great time. It was a great set. But a lot of commentary was like, it felt very unsafe. And then the people coming for the next artist and the Chappell Roan. I mean, people got there for Chappell Roan at 8:45 in the morning and like camped out. Yeah, that's just a little unhinged. Not that you can't love the artist. I'm not saying that, but just the amount of people, like you were saying, I feel like it was oversold.
And it gives people like me anxiety.
Same. I couldn't do that again.
I love going to a music festival, but being able to enjoy the music, being able to have access to restrooms without a wait, being able to get food and refreshments and, pretty orderly. And that really wasn't bad.
That wasn't bad.
But it just gets really crowded and it can feel unsafe at times.
Same. But we do love ACL Fest.
We do. We were levitating.
Like I said, religious experience.
It was great.
So good.
Thank you, Dua Lipa.
Thank you, Dua Lipa. Thank you, ACL Fest.
Thank you, Leon Bridges.
Oh, that's right. We got to see Khruangbin.
Benson Boone.
All of them. Benson Boone, Teddy Swims.
Benson Boone was doing backflips. And
Benson Boone was killing it
all over the stage.
Yeah, Khruangbin was great. And then, which we've mentioned Khruangbin on this podcast. I love Khruangbin.
Yeah, you brought that up.
And then Leon Bridges came out to sing Texas Sun as the sun was setting. Stunning.
In Austin, Texas with the skyline in the background.
Great.
It was beautiful. Who played during Dua Lipa during her set?
Pretty Lights.
Pretty Lights was putting on quite a show.
Yeah.
The opposite end of Zilker while Dua Lipa was playing. It
was great.
Good time.
Well, Ryan.
Would love to go to ACL next year. Maybe a platinum pass if we have a sponsor or two.
Come on. We'll cover it on the podcast. We would love a brand deal with somebody.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
We'd love for you to be part of that episode.
Let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
Okay.
Well,
Ryan.
Jennifer.
And listeners and watchers.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for listening to Once More Unhinged. These episodes come out every Wednesday, and be sure to check out our latest episodes of Once More a Rewatch podcast, which come out every Friday. We are about to finish season 2 of Buffy this week. Yes, we've got Go Fish, and then next week we're doing a big 2-part episode where we cover Becoming Part 1 and Part 2.
That's right. That'll be the end of season 2 of Once More a Rewatch podcast.
Sure will.
Exciting.
Very.
For more Unhinged content, please follow us on social media. We are at Once More Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Threads.
We sure are.
Unhinged is produced by us. I'm Ryan something.
And I'm Jen Katz.
Okay. Shalom.
Shalom. It's like the Jewish aloha. Bye.
Bye. Aloha.